Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The three blazing suns of Gliese 667c hung in the sky above Nexus 9, casting harsh light across the cracked Duracrete landing pad where Ethan Caldwell leaned against his battered shuttle, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. His faded black duster, patched from years of hard living, flapped loosely over a gray tank top, while cargo pants were tucked into scuffed boots, relics from his days as a pilot for the Terran Alliance, soaring among the stars. Now, stranded on this dusty trade hub, Ethan was just a drifter, his pilot's license revoked after a smuggling run gone spectacularly wrong. His wrist's comm beeped, its flickering display showing a pitiful sum, 150 credits. Not enough for a decent sandwich, let alone fuel, he muttered, kicking a pebble that skittered into the hazy mist enveloping the bustling pad. The pebble clinked against a rusted metal plate, a dry sound echoing his life, nothing left but scraps. The air thrummed with the voices of a dozen alien species, a chaotic symphony that Ethan's neural implant translated only in fragments. The low growls of Krog, the melodic cadence of Vraini, the shrill screeches of Zorith, all blended into a cacophony like a cosmic bazaar turned upside down. Ethan grimaced, trying to tune it out, but his implant caught snippets. "This cargo's not clean," a Krog growled somewhere behind. "Lower the price, I'm no prey," a sharp Vraini voice shot back. He shook his head, eyes fixed on the neon signs hovering above the stalls. Cheap lodgings. Guaranteed non-toxic. Protein packs, even a hollow tattoo parlor boasting. Eternal symbols for all species. Eternal, my ass, Ethan mumbled, recalling the faded tattoo on his left shoulder. A starship, a reminder of days when he dreamed of charting the galaxy, not skulking on a sand-choked planet. He trudged forward, boots crunching on the fractured ground, dust swirling around his feet. Nexus 9's landing pad was a maze of wrecked ships, stacked crates, and shady dealers. A spider-legged repair bot clattered past, dragging a tangle of cables. Ethan sidestepped, nearly bumping into a lanky Zorith, its kaleidoscope eyes glinting. "Watch it, soft skin!" it hissed, voice sharp as a blade. Ethan raised a hand in mock apology, but his eyes were cold. "Soft skin, hard bones," he replied, voice casual. The Zorith glared for a second before stalking off, its spiked tail lashing the air. Humans were rare in these parts, and their troublemaker reputation always preceded them. Ethan didn't care. Sometimes, that rep was the only thing keeping him alive. His ARC-7 pistol tapped lightly against his hip as he wove through the crowd, a small comfort in this chaotic world. He checked his wristcom again, hoping for a miracle to bump up the 150 credits, but it stayed stubbornly still, mocking him. "Gotta find a way," he told himself, scanning the market. A Krog ship, big as a fortress, touched down in the distance, shaking the ground. The crowd parted, avoiding the spiked mercenaries who disembarked, weapons glinting. Ethan turned away, not wanting trouble. He'd learned the hard way, on Nexus 9, trouble found you faster than credits. Then he saw it, a hollow poster flickering on a nearby metal pole, its blue light cutting through the haze. The text, in crisp galactic standard, read, "Pilot wanted, navigator for short-term cargo run. Discretion required, non-hostile. 250 credits per cycle. Contact Zanara at docking bay 17. Ethan raised an eyebrow, pausing, hands in pockets. Navigator? He could plot a course through a black hole blindfolded, had dodged Alliance customs and tight hyperspace lanes. 250 credits was a lifeline, enough to fix his ship, refuel, maybe even buy a meal that wasn't recycled protein. But discretion and non-hostile gave him pause. In this world, those words were code for trouble, the kind his pistol might not handle. He tapped his wristcom, zooming in on the poster. No details, no ship name, just Zanara and coordinates for Bay 17. Zanara, huh? He muttered, searching his memory for the name. Maybe Vraini, with a name that soft. Or Zorith, if it was a trap. But 150 credits wouldn't get him far, and his ship was one bad day from being scrap. Nothing to lose. he told himself, though his gut screamed otherwise. He punched in the coordinates, the calm flashing confirmation, and started walking, weaving through stalls reeking of engine oil and alien spices. The path to Base 17 twisted through the market, neon lights vying for attention. An old Krog woman, spines worn down, tried to sell him life seeds, glowing in glass vials. "Live 100 years!" she rasped. Ethan shook his head, smirking. "Thanks, but I haven't survived this year yet," she growled, turning away, as he pressed on, eyes scanning the ships along the way. Some gleamed like they just rolled off an assembly line, others looked ready to collapse. Nexus 9 was like that, a place of dreams and nightmares, where everything had a price, even loyalty. As he neared the docking area, the air grew thick with the smell of scorched metal and ion fuel. Ethan slowed, checking his ARC-7 in its holster, fingers brushing the cool metal. He didn't like fights, but he didn't shy from them either. The locals stared longer now, eyes wary. A Vrani, skin shimmering green, paused to watch him, its feathered crest quivering. "Human," it whispered to a companion, voice a mix of curiosity and disdain. Ethan smirked, pretending not to hear, but his hand tightened on the holster. "Keep staring," he thought. "But don't try me." Docking Base 17 loomed ahead, a massive hangar with a perforated dome, the light of the three suns slicing through like blades. Ethan stopped, taking a deep breath, trying to quiet the instinct screaming in his head. This job, whatever it was, wouldn't be as simple as plotting a course. But 250 credits were a chance to escape this pit, and Ethan Caldwell never passed up a chance, no matter how much it stank of trouble. He straightened his duster, stepped into the hangar's shadows, ready to face whatever, or whoever, awaited at Base 17. Docking Base 17 was a grimy steel pit, its walls stained with rust and ion burns, the light of Gliese 667 CS3 suns filtering through the perforated dome in blinding patches across the duocrete floor. In the center, a sleek crescent-shaped ship sat smugly, its hull shimmering like liquid silver, unmarked by logos or insignia. Ethan Caldwell halted, letting out a low whistle. "That's no cargo hauler," he muttered, eyes narrowing. "That's a smuggler's toy." Ships like this were fast, discreet, and definitely carrying something worth more than recycled protein. He smirked, hands in pockets, but the ARC-7 at his hip reminded him that Nexus 9 never played fair. He approached, boots echoing on the floor, keeping his stride casual despite the knot of unease in his gut. The hangar was quiet, save for the hum of air scrubbers and the acrid tang of scorched metal in his nose. A hatch on the ship hissed open, a ramp lowering with a whine. Ethan froze, hand brushing his holster. Then a figure emerged, a Vrani woman, her translucent green skin catching the light in prismatic glints. Four slender arms moved like a dancer's, her large golden eyes locking onto him with a mix of curiosity and icy caution. She wore a form-fitting jumpsuit, its fabric shifting from silver to teal, hugging her lithe frame. Feathers around her head, like a glowing halo, quivered as she tilted her face. "You're the human," she said, her voice melodic but sharp, vibrating through Ethan's neural implant. "I didn't expect you." Ethan flashed a lopsided grin, stepping forward, hands raised to disarm her suspicion. "Ethan Caldwell, top navigator in the Orion Arm. You're Zanara, right?" He leaned into the words, watching her reaction. Her eyes narrowed, one hand hovering near a device on her thigh, probably a shock baton, or some Vrani trick for shooing off strangers. "Humans are unpredictable," she said, voice cold. The ad said non-hostile. Ethan spread his arms, grinning wider. "Lady, I'm cuddly as a puppy. Just need a job to keep my ship from turning to scrap." He tilted his head, eyes flicking over her. Zanara's feathers twitched, like they were sniffing the air, or him. Vrani had that energy-sensing thing, almost mind-reading. Ethan didn't love being read like that, but he kept his shoulders loose, like he was chatting at a bar. Zanara studied him, her golden eyes scanning from head to toe. "Can you pilot?" she asked, her tone softening but still guarded. Ethan smirked. "Pilot? I've dodged Alliance customs in an ion storm, slipped cargo past Zorith borders without a whiff. Still breathing's my resume. He shrugged, playing it off. Zanara didn't smile, but her feathers relaxed. Fine, she said. But I need. She was cut off by a low roar from the hangar's shadows. Ethan spun, hand on his holster, eyes sweeping the dark corners. 3 Krog mercenaries emerged, their spiked hides glinting like metal, each as big as a wall. The leader clutched a data slate, red eyes glaring at Zanara. Zanara, he growled, voice like grinding stone. Protection money's late. Hand over the cargo, or we gut your ship. The other 2, energy rifles humming, blocked the exit. Ethan glanced at Zanara, seeing her stiffen, though she tried to stay calm. I'll have the credits tomorrow, she said, voice steady but taut as a wire. The Krog sneered, baring sharp teeth. No tomorrow for you. He stepped closer, spines rattling. Ethan saw Zanara's hand inch toward her baton, but her eyes signaled, don't move. He frowned, getting the hint. Fighting now was a bad call. But Ethan wasn't one to stand idle. He cleared his throat, stepping between Zanara and the Krog, hands loose but near his pistol. Gentlemen, he said, voice breezy. Let's keep it civil. She's my new boss, so that ship's my business. The Krog chuckled like they'd heard a bad joke, but their eyes flicked to the ARC-7 at his hip. Humans had a rep for recklessness, and Ethan's casual stance, hand near gun, smirk in place, sold it. You're outnumbered, soft skin. The leader hissed, stepping forward, his hot breath hitting Ethan's face. Ethan laughed, not backing down. Funny, we don't count heads. He tilted his head, eyes locked on the Krog, voice low. Wanna test me? The air crackled, the Krog's rifles humming louder. Ethan's heart pounded, but he held his cool, like he was bluffing in a card game. Zanara stood behind, feathers quivering fiercely, but she stayed silent, letting him play it out. Then the Krog backed off, muttering curses. Watch yourself, human, he growled, turning away, his goons following, their spines scraping the floor. Ethan exhaled, shoulders relaxing, hand easing off his holster. He turned to Zanara, smirking. Fun start to the day, huh? Zanara stared, her golden eyes unreadable, like she was reassessing the human in front of her. Why step in? She asked, voice low. You weren't hired yet. Ethan shrugged, his grin fading. Felt right. Plus 250 credits aren't worth those spiky bastards ruining. She watched him a moment longer, feathers settling, then nodded. Fine. You're hired. But no guns on my ship, and no questions about the cargo. Ethan unclipped his holster, handing it over with a mock salute. Deal. He paused, eyes glinting. But seriously, what's this cargo they're so hot for? Zanara's feathers flared, her eyes flashing. Rule 1, no questions, she said, voice sharp as a blade. Ethan smirked, nodding, but in his head the word cargo echoed like a warning that this job would be anything but a simple NAV run. Zanara gestured, leading Ethan up the ship's ramp, its bioluminescent corridor shimmering like living skin, making him pause. This place ain't cheap, he muttered, hand brushing the wall, feeling a strange energy pulse. Zanara glanced back, feathers quivering. Take the co-pilot seat, human. And don't touch anything. Ethan chuckled, stepping into the cockpit, where the curved console glowed blue. He sat, his neural implant beeping as it synced, but his eyes stayed on Zanara. She stood tall, forearms poised, more warrior than pilot. Ready, boss? He asked, voice casual, though the knot of trouble still churned in his gut. The ship's cockpit was a rainy marvel, its curved console glowing blue, no buttons or screens, just smooth, living surfaces that pulsed under Zanara's touch. Ethan Caldwell sat in the co-pilot's seat, his neural implant beeping as it synced with the NAV system. His eyes scanned the console, plotting a course to the Zephyr Nebula in a heartbeat. But the ship's cloaking tech and encrypted comms screamed one thing: this wasn't some run-of-the-mill hauler. Definitely not hauling protein packs. He muttered, smirking, fingers tapping the armrest. His Arc-7 was confiscated, and he felt naked without it. The ship lifted off Nexus 9, the planet's dusty haze fading into the endless black of the void. Stars twinkled in the distance, reminding Ethan he was at the galaxy's edge, where laws were a punchline. He stole a glance at Zanara, her forearms dancing across the console with a conductor's precision. Her head feathers quivered, catching the light in tiny sparks. "So," he ventured, voice casual. "Brainy, huh? Rare to see a Brainy running solo like this." Her feathers stiffened, golden eyes shooting him a cold glance. "Rule 2, no personal talk," she said, her melodic voice laced with steel. Ethan chuckled, raising his hands in surrender. "Fair enough. Just trying to break the ice. Not used to sitting quiet in a cockpit." She didn't reply, but the corner of her mouth twitched, like she was fighting a smile. Hours passed, filled only by the hum of the engines and soft beeps from the console. Ethan leaned back, eyes on the NAV screen, mind spinning with vectors and angles. Then an alarm blared, bathing the cockpit in red. Ethan snapped upright, hands flying to the console. "What's that?" Zanara gritted her teeth, forearms racing across the controls. 3 Krog ships. Dropped out of hyperspace. Weapons locked. Ethan glanced at the screen. 3 sleek predators, spiked hulls glinting, hot on their tail. "They tracked us," Zanara hissed, her calm cracking, feathers quivering fiercely. "Great," Ethan muttered, fingers dancing over the NAV console, plotting an escape. "Get us to that asteroid field at 0.7 astronomical units. I can lose them in the rubble." Zanara shot him a look, eyes flashing doubt. "Asteroids? Too dangerous." Ethan smirked. "Danger's my trade. Trust me." She hesitated, then nodded, her hands weaving glowing patterns on the console. The ship surged, engines roaring, diving toward the jagged asteroid field ahead. The void erupted as Krog plasma bolts scorched the space, purple streaks blazing past the hull. Ethan gritted his teeth, pilot instincts kicking in. He yanked the controls, weaving the ship through massive rocks tumbling in the dark. "Hold tight!" he shouted, banking hard, dodging a boulder by meters. Zanara gripped her seat, golden eyes flicking to him, a spark of respect cutting through her tension. "Can you do this?" she asked, voice trembling. Ethan laughed. "Just watch." A bolt grazed the hull, sparks exploding in the cockpit, the console flashing warnings. "Shields at 20%! Zanara yelled, hands moving faster, stabilizing the ship. Ethan smirked, reckless. "Good. Keeps it exciting." He punched in new coordinates, diving into a narrow gap between 2 asteroids, the void shaking as rocks collided. The Krog ships pursued, but they were bigger, slower. One slammed into a boulder, erupting in a fireball. "1 down, 2 to go," Ethan muttered, eyes glued to the screen. Zanara fired an energy pulse from the console, scrambling the enemy's radar. "Stay on course," she shouted. Ethan nodded, banking relentlessly, sweat beading on his brow. He felt the ship like an extension of himself, every maneuver a heartbeat. "Funny," he said, voice tight. "I thought this was just a cargo run." Zanara glanced at him, feathers quivering. "No cargo. Just something vital." Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Rule 1. They threaded through the asteroid field, Ethan's tactics and Zanara's tech meshing seamlessly. Another Krog ship gave up, trapped in the debris. The last one unleashed a plasma barrage, but Ethan slipped through a tight gap, letting the shots miss into the void. The Krog cursed over an open calm, their growls fading as they retreated. The alarm fell silent, the cockpit plunging into quiet. Zanara slumped in her seat, feathers drooping, breathing hard. "You're insane," she said, a hint of awe in her voice. Ethan leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow, smirking. "Nah, just human. We love this stuff." He glanced at her, eyes glinting. "So, this cargo, worth getting chased by spikeheads for?" Zanara went quiet, her golden eyes softening, like she was staring into a distant memory. "It's a Vraini relic," she said, voice low. The last archive of my people. If the Krog get it, our culture dies. Ethan whistled, feigning nonchalance though his heart still raced. No pressure then. For the first time, Zenara smiled, a faint curve shimmering on her lips, like a star in the void. No pressure, she echoed, voice soft. Ethan watched her, feeling a spark of connection, though he couldn't name it. He tapped the armrest, eyes back on the NAV screen. Where to next, boss? Zenara entered new coordinates, feathers quivering lightly. Vraini outpost. Where the relic must go. Ethan nodded, but in his mind relic rang like a warning. This job, even for 250 credits, was turning into something bigger and deadlier than anything he'd faced before. The Zephyr Nebula enveloped the ship like a radiant purple veil, ion light shimmering across its liquid silver hull. The vessel glided smoothly, a ghost in the void, but inside the cockpit, the air was heavy as lead. Ethan Caldwell sat in the co-pilot's seat, eyes locked on the NAV screen, but his mind was on Zenara. She stood at the console, forearms gliding over its bioluminescent surface, her head feathers quivering, too faintly, like she was hiding something. Ethan swiveled his chair, facing her, fingers tapping his knee. All right, boss, he said, voice breezy. I'm not asking about the cargo, per your rules. But if the Krog are hunting us this hard, I need to know what we're up against. Not curiosity, survival. Zenara froze, her golden eyes flicking to him, feathers trembling harder. She stayed silent, as if wrestling with herself, then sighed, her voice low. The cargo isn't just an archive. It holds the genetic code of the Vraini ancestors, the blueprint to rebuild our species. Our homeworld was destroyed in the galactic purge. If this relic falls into enemy hands, they could turn us into bioweapons. Ethan blinked, processing the weight of it, letting out a soft whistle. So, you're carrying the entire future of the Vraini on your shoulders? Zenara nodded, her eyes glinting with pain, like staring into an old wound. I'm the last of the Guardian lineage. If I fail, my people vanish forever. Ethan scratched his neck, trying to lighten the mood. Well, no wonder you're stressed. But don't worry, I've smuggled cargo past Zorath borders without getting caught. This is just a bigger deal. He smirked, but inside, he knew this was no game. Zenara looked at him, the corner of her mouth twitching in a rare smile. You're strange, human. Arrogant yet reliable. Ethan chuckled, about to reply when a deafening explosion rocked the cockpit, the screen flaring red. They found us! Zenara shouted, forearms flying across the console. Ethan leapt to the nav station, eyes scanning the screen. A Krog warship, 3 times the size of the earlier raiders, emerged from the nebula, its spiked hull glinting like a blade. They've got Vraini energy trackers! Zenara hissed, her calm shattering, feathers flaring. Ethan gritted his teeth, fingers dancing over the console. Get us into the nebula's plasma zone. It'll scramble their sensors. Zenara shot him a look, eyes flashing doubt. Plasma? Too dangerous. Ethan smirked. Danger's my specialty. Do it. She nodded, hands weaving glowing patterns, and the ship plunged into the ion cloud, purple light flooding the cockpit. But the Krog ship clung to them, firing tractor beams, blue arcs slicing through the void to drag them back. Shields down 30%! Zenara yelled, voice taut. Ethan punched in new coordinates, eyes glued to the screen. Hold the shields. I'll thread us through a narrow gap in the nebula, where those big bastards won't dare follow. Zenara stared, her golden eyes blazing. If you're wrong, we're ash. Ethan laughed. Then at least we go out together. He banked the ship boldly, threading through a tight gap, dodging plasma columns that burned like hellfire. The void shook, engines roaring, the console flashing warnings. Ethan felt his heart pound, but his hands were steady, mind racing with angles and vectors. Watch the right! Zenara shouted, firing an energy pulse to disrupt the tractor beams. Ethan swerved, grazing a plasma column by meters, sweat streaming down his face. Funny, he muttered. I thought this gig was just plotting a course. The Krog ship clung doggedly, but it was too bulky. A tractor beam grazed them, shaking the ship, cockpit lights flickering. Shields at 10%! Zanara screamed. Ethan gritted his teeth, banking sharply into an even tighter gap where plasma roared like a star. Hold on! He shouted, hands dancing on the controls. The Krog ship followed but got caught in the ion storm, exploding in a blinding fireball that lit up the nebula. Ethan exhaled, slumping back, wiping sweat. Told ya. Zanara collapsed into her seat, feathers drooping, breathing ragged. You actually did it, she said, awe mixing with exhaustion. Ethan shrugged, smirking. Humans love this stuff. Where to next? Zanara entered new coordinates, voice low. Rainy outpost. Where the relic must be locked in the ancestral vault. But as she turned away, Ethan caught her feathers trembling oddly, like she was hiding something. He tapped the armrest, eyes narrowing. You okay, boss? She froze, didn't answer, just punched more commands into the console. Ethan didn't push, but her words about the relic echoed in his head. Genetic code, bioweapons, the Rainey's future. This was bigger than any job he'd ever taken. He stared into the void, the Zephyr Nebula glinting like a warning. 250 credits, he muttered. Definitely not enough for this mess. But glancing at Zanara, seeing her golden eyes burn with resolve, he knew he was in too deep. Not for the credits, but for something he couldn't yet name, a spark in the void. The Vraini outpost floated in the Zephyr Nebula's shadow, cloaked by a shimmering veil of toxic purple gas, its pearlescent hull faintly glowing under dim starlight. Inside, the corridors were cold bioluminescent crystals on the walls pulsing weakly, like dying lanterns. Ethan Caldwell followed Zanara, his boots echoing on the metal floor, hand gripping a Vraini shock bat and scavenge from the ship's armory. This place gives me the creeps, he muttered, eyes scanning the dark corners, expecting trouble to leap out any second. Zanara glanced back, her feathers brushing his arm, sending a strange warmth through his skin. Stay close, she said, voice low. This outpost doesn't welcome outsiders. Ethan smirked, though his pulse quickened. Unwelcome? Story of my life. But he stuck close, bat and ready, feeling the air thicken like before a storm. They moved through the corridors, crystals flickering with their steps, leading to a vast dome, the vault chamber. At its center, a glowing orb the size of a fist hovered over a stone pedestal, its blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. The Vraini relic. Ethan let out a low whistle. Pretty, but looks like trouble in a box. Zanara didn't reply, her golden eyes focused, forearms raised to place the relic in the pedestal's lock. Then a cold voice cut through the dark. Stop, Zanara! Ethan spun, bat and flaring, electric lights sparking. A male Vraini stepped forward, his skin a deeper green than Zanara's, his long feathers gleaming like sharp metal. He wore a battle cloak, an energy pistol in hand glowing red. Kale, Zanara whispered, eyes wide, feathers trembling fiercely. Why are you here? Kale's lips curled in a cold smile. To reclaim the relic? You think you're the only guardian? The Vraini Council sent me when you stole it. Ethan stepped forward, bat and raised, eyes narrowing. Hold up, stole? I thought she was the official pick. Zanara turned to him, voice trembling, feathers drooping. I didn't tell you everything. The Council wanted to trade the relic to the Galactic Alliance for peace. But the Alliance would use it to build weapons. I took it to save my people. Ethan blinked, processing the twist. So you jacked it? Damn, boss, you're full of surprises. He smirked, but inside, he knew things just got messy. Kale sneered, aiming his pistol at Zanara. Save? You're just delaying our extinction. Hand it over, or I take it by force. Ethan stepped in, voice casual despite his pounding heart. Look, Feather Boy, I don't get your Vraini drama, but she's my boss. Want the relic? You go through me. Kale swung his pistol, locking onto Ethan, eyes glinting with contempt. Human. Always meddling in what's not yours. Ethan raised his bat and ready, but before he could move, Zenara lunged, her forearms blazing with photonic energy. Blinding beams shot out, forcing Kale back, his gun skittering across the floor. "Run!" Zenara shouted, shoving Ethan toward the exit. They bolted down the corridor, Boots and Zenara's steps echoing, mixing with Kale's growls behind. Ethan heard the clatter of mercenaries, likely hired Krog, chasing, their spines scraping the floor. "Perfect! A whole army!" Ethan muttered, dodging an energy bolt that shattered a crystal wall. Zenara led the way, forearms weaving a photonic net, temporarily blocking the path. They hit a junction, and she touched the wall, activating a crystal shield, its blue light forming a barrier. Kale's footsteps stopped behind, but his curses echoed. Ethan exhaled, leaning against the wall, baton still tight in hand. "Remind me to read the fine print next time." Zenara turned, her golden eyes full of regret, feathers drooping. "I'm sorry I lied," she said, voice shaking. "I didn't think I'd trust a human, but you've saved me, again and again." Ethan shrugged, heart still racing. "Yeah, I wasn't planning to trust a four-armed lady either. But we're a team now, right?" She nodded, feathers quivering, a faint smile breaking through. "Right. And I need you to finish this mission." Ethan tapped his baton against his hand, eyes scanning the corridor. "So, what's the plan? Get that shiny orb into the lock before Kale and his spiky pals catch us?" Zenara nodded, pulling a small crystal device from her pocket. "This is the backup key. If we place the relic in the lock, the outpost's defenses will activate, sealing out intruders." Ethan smirked. "Sounds like a plan. But with my luck, there'll be more surprises." A blast shook the corridor, the crystal shield trembling, its blue light flickering. "Zenara!" Kale roared from behind, voice sharp as a blade. Ethan gripped his baton, looking at Zenara. "Ready, boss?" She nodded, golden eyes blazing with resolve. "Ready." They sprinted toward the vault chamber, knowing each step was a gamble, and the relic in Zenara's hands was the only thing keeping the Vrani from darkness. Ethan Caldwell pressed his back against the cold wall of the maintenance bay, the air thick with the stench of engine oil and charred crystal. Tinkling crystals on the walls pulsed like living veins, their faint blue light echoing memories of the galactic purge, when this outpost was the Vrani's last bastion. Old ion-burned scars stained the floor, remnants of a war that nearly wiped them out. The clatter of Krog mercenaries, Kale's hired muscle, echoed outside, their spines scraping the floor like claws. Ethan checked his Vrani shock baton, its blue glow flickering weakly. "Great," he muttered, smirking. "Battery's dying. Guess we're down to your sparkles for a fight." Zenara, crouched opposite in the shadows, frowned, her feathers quivering. "You can joke even when we're about to die," she said, voice low, but her lips twitched, like she couldn't help it. Ethan chuckled, tapping the baton against his palm. "Human survival trick. Too stressed? Crack a joke to keep the fear at bay." He glanced at her, eyes narrowing. "But seriously, boss, we need a plan. This place is turning into a hunting ground." Zenara nodded, pulling a small, star-like crystal device from her suit. "This is the backup key," she said. "If we get the relic into the lock before Kale, the outpost's defenses will activate, sealing out intruders." Ethan whistled softly. "Nice. My pitch, you play decoy with your sparkles, I sneak to the vault chamber." Zenara shook her head, feathers flaring. "Too risky. Kale knows my photonic abilities. He'll shoot you on sight." Ethan shrugged. "I've dodged Zorath customs in an ion storm. One Vrani and some Krog are nothing." She stared, golden eyes flickering with half annoyance, half admiration. "You're insane." Ethan laughed. "Nah, just human." Zenara tilted her head, feathers brushing his shoulder, sending a warm pulse through his torn jacket. "Insane but reliable," she said softly. "I never thought I'd lean on a human, but you're different." Ethan winked, though his pulse spiked. "You're not bad either, boss. For arms, but you fight like hell." She gave a rare smile, her golden eyes glinting like stars through Nexus 9's haze. Before they could argue further, The floor shook, metal screeching. An ancient Vraini security bot rose from the wall, big as a truck, its red eyes sweeping over them. Level 1 intrusion. Eliminate. It droned in a metallic growl, its cannon arms glowing. Ethan shoved Zanara aside, dodging a laser that scorched the wall. Run! He shouted, sprinting into the corridor, Zanara close behind. The bot pursued, steel feet cracking the floor, its roar shaking the outpost. Zanara fired photonic beams, blinding light wrapping the bot, slowing it. We can't take it down, she yelled, forearms weaving a glowing net. Ethan scanned the hall, spotting an old console, its crystals flickering. Keep it busy, I'll try hacking, he shouted, dashing to the panel. Zanara nodded, firing more beams, pinning the bot in the narrow corridor. Ethan plugged his neural implant into the console, a flood of alien data hitting his mind like 1,000 ancient Vraini screams. Like learning to fly a Zorath ship blind. He muttered, sweat dripping. The Vraini code danced chaotically on the screen, symbols swirling like living crystal, unlike any Alliance system he'd cracked. His implant burned, pain stabbing his neck, but he gritted his teeth, tracing the code. Just find the weak spot, he told himself, recalling a smuggling hack at Zoratha's border. Zanara shouted, Ethan, it's breaking through. He glanced back, seeing the bot advance, heart pounding, then spotted a repeating code pattern. Gotcha, he growled, punching in the final command, hands shaking as the console flashed green. The bot roared, shattering the light net, charging forward. Zanara yelled, Hurry! Ethan hit the last command, the console flaring green, and the bot collapsed in a shower of sparks, its red eyes fading. He exhaled, yanking out his implant. Zanara ran to him, feathers trembling. You hacked Vraini tech? She asked, voice thick with disbelief. Ethan shrugged, wiping sweat. Humans love tinkering with weird stuff. Let's move. But the victory was brief. Heavy footsteps echoed, and Kale appeared at the corridor's end, leading a squad of spiked Krog, their energy rifles humming. No more running, Zanara, he growled, aiming at her. Ethan gripped his baton, stepping in front of Zanara, though its dying battery was useless. Buddy, your drama's getting old, he said, voice cool. Kale sneered, about to reply when a cold voice cut through the outpost speakers. Enough, Kale. A nearby screen flared, revealing a Vraini woman, her pale green skin shimmering, short feathers sharp as blades. I am Theran, Vraini Council Leader, she said, voice like a knife. Zanara, surrender the relic, and we'll forgive you. Human, leave or die. Ethan glanced at Zanara, heart racing. You know her? Zanara nodded, her golden eyes brimming with pain, voice bitter. My sister. Ethan blinked, leaning against the wall. Your sister? What kind of family drama is this? The screen flickered, Theran's face blurring for a moment, as if gazing into the past. In Zanara's mind, a memory flashed, days on the Vraini homeworld, before the galactic purge. Theran, her sister, stood amid crystal gardens, feathers gleaming, teaching her to weave photonic light. We're guardians, Zanara, Theran had said, voice proud. But guarding sometimes demands strength, not just hope. When the sky burned red and Alliance ships tore their world apart, Theran held her, golden eyes blazing with rage. They'll pay. Theran swore, and from then on, she changed, from guardian to power seeker, believing only ancient weapons could save their kind. The memory faded, Zanara clutching the relic, heart aching as she faced her sister on the screen, now an enemy. Kale laughed, gun still aimed. Hand it over, or you both die. Ethan gripped his baton, scanning Kale and the Krog, knowing a direct fight was suicide. Too many, he whispered, pulling Zanara into a shadowed corner. We'll loop through the vents, get to the vault chamber first. Zanara nodded, feathers trembling, hands clutching the relic. They slipped into a narrow wall grate, the Krog's spines scraping the floor behind, a reminder that time was running out. Theran's revelation hit Ethan Caldwell like a plasma bolt in a nebula chase, his mind reeling as if dodging fire. Your sister? He muttered, glancing at Zanara, still gripping his near-dead shock baton. What kind of family drama is this? Zanara clutched his hand, her feathers trembling, golden eyes blazing with a mix of resolve and pain. Tharen believes sacrificing the relic will save the Vraini, she said, voice low. But I see our future in protecting it, not selling it cheap. Ethan nodded, feeling the strength in her words, though their odds were stacked against them. Then we steal their hand, he said, smirking. Let's go. They slipped into the ventilation system, crawling through tight metal ducts to avoid Krog mercenaries and patrolling security bots. The scrape of spines and hum of energy rifles echoed outside, making Ethan grit his teeth. Remind me to pick less dramatic gigs next time, he muttered, inching along behind Zanara. She glanced back, feathers quivering lightly. You'd be bored if it was too easy. Ethan chuckled. You're starting to get me, boss. They emerged near the vault chamber, its vast dome housing the relic, a glowing orb, hovering over a stone pedestal. Zanara raised the crystal key, ready to place the relic, when the door burst open. Kale stormed in, energy pistol aimed at Ethan. Drop it or he dies, he growled, golden eyes glinting with contempt. Zanara hesitated, hands shaking, eyes shimmering with tears. Ethan shook his head, voice firm. Don't, Zanara. Do your job. But before she could decide, a cold voice rang out. Enough. Tharen stepped into the chamber, not on a screen but in person, her pale green skin shimmering, leading Vraini guards with glowing rifles. Zanara, you're wrong, she said, voice sharp. The relic isn't for keeping. It's the key to an ancestral weapons cache. Ethan blinked, mind spinning. Weapons cache? I thought it was genetic code. Dharen's smile was cold, her feathers quivering like blades. It's both, and war tech. With it, the Vraini will rule the galaxy, not just survive. Zanara stepped back, clutching the relic, golden eyes burning with fury. You're mad, Tharen. Ethan gripped his baton, shielding her. Listen, big sis, if you want to play Emperor, find your own toys. This relic's Zanara's. Dharen's lips curled, signaling her guards. The Krog and Vraini charged, and the fight erupted. Ethan swung his baton, dodging energy bolts, fighting with street brawler tactics. He clocked a Krog, its spines tearing his jacket, but he rolled, slamming the baton into its head. Zanara wove photonic nets, blinding enemies, her beams binding guards like ropes. They moved in sync, like gears meshing perfectly, but the enemy was overwhelming. Like fighting the whole damn galaxy, Ethan shouted, ducking a laser. Kale's shot hit Ethan's shoulder, pain searing, blood soaking his shirt. He dropped, gritting his teeth. Zanara screamed, her photonic power exploding, a blinding wave shoving back everyone, even Kale. She ran to Ethan, cradling him, eyes wet. I won't let you die! Ethan gripped her hand, smirking through the pain. Not dead yet, boss. Move fast. He fumbled in his pocket, feeling the backup key, and tossed it to her. Lock it! I'll hold them off! Zanara sprinted to the pedestal, hands trembling as she placed the relic. The outpost shook, defenses activating, a blue energy cage trapping Kale and the Krog. But Tharen, wielding a crystal hacking device, broke the cage, lunging at Zanara. You don't understand this power! She roared, raising her pistol. Ethan, despite his bleeding shoulder, tackled Tharen, knocking her gun away. She understands better than you, he growled, clutching his wound. Zanara fired a photonic beam, pinning Tharen to the wall. The energy cage reformed, trapping the enemies. The outpost fell silent, save for Ethan and Zanara's ragged breaths. She rushed to him, supporting him, feathers trembling. You saved me, she whispered. Ethan smirked, leaning into her. Team right? But as he glanced at Tharen, her eyes still burning with hate, he knew it wasn't over. The relic, the weapons cache, and the Vraini drama remained a threat. The vault chamber trembled, crystals on the walls flaring wildly as the outpost's defenses opened a spatial gate, blue light swirling like a vortex. Ethan Caldwell, blood seeping from his shoulder, gritted his teeth beside Zanara, eyes fixed on the gate. Tharen, breaking free from his earlier tackle, charged toward it, her sharp feathers quivering. "I'll claim it!" she roared, vanishing into the light. Zanara gripped Ethan's hand, voice urgent, her feathers glowing brightly. "We have to stop her. If Thera activates the weapons cache, the galaxy will drown in war." Ethan smirked, though pain stabbed his shoulder. "Galactic war? Funny, I just wanted 250 credits." But he squeezed her hand, nodding. "Let's do this, boss." They dove through the gate, space warping around them, pulling them into a bizarre maze, crystals floating in the void, lights swirling like a galaxy, zero gravity making Ethan stumble. He clung to Zanara's hand, blood staining his tank top. "You good?" he asked, voice low. She nodded, golden eyes blazing, feathers glowing like fire. "Thank you, Ethan. For staying." He chuckled. "Don't ditch teammates. Human rule." They chased Thera, gliding past razor-sharp crystals, dodging sudden energy traps that flared in the void. A plasma arc swept by, and Ethan yanked Zanara down, crystals shattering above. "This place is a damn death maze," he muttered, sweat mixing with blood. Zanara fired photonic beams, clearing a path through the crystals, her forearms dancing to guide the light. "Thera's ahead!" she shouted, pointing to a pale green figure in the maze. They reached the center, a vast void with a massive console, crystals orbiting like planets. Thera stood at the controls, hands racing over the glowing surface, eyes wild. "Stop!" Zanara yelled, firing a photonic beam, blinding light wrapping Thera. But she dodged, feathers quivering like knives, entering the final command. Ethan, despite his weakness, lunged, tackling Thera to the floor, blood dripping onto the crystals. "Want power? Look at the cost!" he roared, but Thera shoved him off, sending him sprawling, head spinning. The console flared, a boom shaking the maze. Crystals rained down, space cracking. Zanara screamed, forearms raised, her photonic power erupting, holding back the falling shards. "Ethan, we have to destroy the console!" she shouted, voice strained. He staggered up, rushing to the controls, plugging in his neural implant. "Like hacking that bot again, right?" he muttered, mind reeling with alien brainy code. Through a mental link, Zanara sent code patterns, her voice echoing in his head. "Hurry, Ethan!" Sweat poured, his hands shaking from blood loss. "Funny, now I'm a brainy engineer," he mumbled. The console flashed red, then died, the weapons cache deactivated. But the gate behind began to close, its blue light fading. Thera, realizing her defeat, roared, lunging at Zanara to snatch the relic. Ethan stumbled, shoving Zanara aside, taking Thera's blow to his chest, collapsing, breath choking. Zanara caught him, feathers glowing, channeling warm energy through his skin to keep him conscious. "We escaped together," she whispered, golden eyes brimming with tears. They staggered through the gate, space stretching, hurling them back to the outpost's vault chamber. The gate slammed shut, trapping Thera in the collapsing maze. Ethan crumpled to the floor, gasping, blood pooling under his shoulder. Zanara knelt beside him, forearms touching him, feathers trembling. "You did it," she said, voice trembling. Ethan smirked weakly. "Team right?" But as he looked at the relic's faint glow in Zanara's hands, he knew their victory, and its cost, was fragile. Zanara propped Ethan against the vault chamber's floor, her hands shaking as she tore strips from her jumpsuit, wrapping his shoulder wound. Blood soaked the fabric, but the relic's glow nearby lit her face, revealing relief mixed with worry. "You almost died," she whispered, feathers brushing his cheek, sending warmth through his skin. Ethan smirked, despite the pain. "Almost, boss. Not enough to miss my 250 credits." She shook her head, golden eyes glinting, a faint smile breaking through. The Vraini outpost was silent, save for the hum of its defenses. Krog mercenaries and guards were locked in energy cages, their muffled growls echoing faintly. Ethan leaned against the wall, his shoulder crudely bandaged with Zanara's cloth, dried blood crusting. He smirked, voice hoarse. "Damn, this gig was worth every credit." Zanara knelt beside him, feathers touching his cheek, a wordless comfort. "You're not just a navigator, Ethan. she said, golden eyes shimmering. You're a hero to my people. Ethan chuckled, head resting on the wall. Hero? Just a drifter who met the right four-armed lady. She smiled, a soft curve, feathers quivering lightly. And I met the right human. He looked at her, feeling a bond beyond words, like a star piercing the void. He'd come to Nexus 9 for credits, but now he had a teammate, a purpose, maybe even a spark in the dark. They stood, Zanara supporting Ethan, the relic secure in her hands, its blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. They limped to the ship, the outpost corridors cold, crystals dimming. Ethan glanced at Zanara, seeing her feathers quiver, carrying both hope and burden. What's the plan for that shiny orb? He asked, voice casual. She paused, golden eyes distant. Take it to a hidden Vrani colony, where it'll be safe, never a weapon. Ethan whistled. Solid plan. But with our luck, more spiky bastards will come knocking. Zanara laughed, a free, melodic sound. With you by my side, I'm not worried. They boarded the ship, the cockpit glowing as Zanara entered the colony's coordinates. Ethan slumped into the co-pilot's seat, shoulder throbbing, but his mind was clear. Funny, he muttered. Thought this job was just plotting a course, fueling up, done. Now I'm a Vrani hero. The ship leapt into hyperspace, the void swirling, stars fading. Zanara sat beside him, forearms resting on the console, feathers calm. Ever think about the future, Ethan? She asked, voice low. He shrugged, staring into the void. Used to. But my future was 150 credits and a busted ship. Now, maybe I want something bigger. He glanced at her, winking. Ready for the next gig, boss? Zanara smiled, golden eyes blazing, feathers singing like music. With you? Always. The ship soared through the dark, toward the Vrani colony, carrying the relic, and a new alliance, between a human drifter and a Vrani woman bearing her people's future. Ethan tapped the armrest, his heartbeat syncing with the engines. Nexus 9, its dusty landing pad, was just a memory. Ahead lay the void, Zanara, and an untold story, a spark, not just in the dark, but in his heart.